Good morning. I'm Jack Bevan in Parkwood, 9405. I originally come from Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia area. I worked there my entire life, went to school there, moved to Marco Island, and then in 2010 or 11, I moved to Shell Point. Greatest decision I ever made in my life. As far as collecting, I guess I've collected things my entire life. I've also inherited a lot of things from different relatives who passed away. A lot of things I've picked up over my travels. I've enjoyed traveling. And one of my collections is baseball hats, and other things are shown here. Some of these things came from my father. The train collections were my father's. The houses up here, here, actually came from the late 1930s. My father had a train platform before I was born, thinking I was going to come early. Didn't. I was late as usual. But he had a whole train platform in 1936. These types of things here, I've actually just collected on my paths. I've always liked old cars, and since I couldn't afford to buy one, I used to buy models and build the models. I have a cigarette light collection here. They were my father's. And all these things here are built or were bought on my travels. I collect things I like. I'm not a collector. You know, collectors I've seen on TV, collectors, they can tell you the history of pieces, and well, I have no idea and no desire to know that. If I see something, I like it, I buy it. I have to admit, I haven't bought many things recently because I don't have any place to put it anymore. I was at the show they had back in December. I guess it was a Christmas show, and there was a fellow there that had some decoys. I would love to bought some of those decoys, but I didn't have a place to put it, so I had to forego that. Well, my neighbor, I had a place in North Carolina, and my neighbor was from Tennessee. Nice guy, loved golf. And he had a small collection of baseball hats, and he gave me one time. And I said, that's a nice thing to collect, you know, on my travels, because almost every souvenir store has baseball hats. So every place I went, I would buy a baseball hat. South America, up to Canada, Arctic, Antarctic, throughout Europe, Russia. And even I have problems when I go back to a place, I don't remember if I've had one. So sometimes I buy a second one to find out when I get home, oh, I already have this hat. So I probably have probably 100 to 150 baseball hats all over the house. Well, I guess that's one of my prized possessions as far as being an antique. It came from the ship, I can never say the right, Apalachicola Chattahoochee River, and the boat was called the Chattahoochee, and it was a Confederate gunboat. I've forgotten now where it was built, but it was sunk in 1865 towards the end of the war because they didn't want the Yankees to get the gunboat, so they actually sank it in the river. In 63, 62, I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia, assigned to a float bridge company. And before I got there, they were working to raise the gunboat up to deliver it down to Columbus, Georgia, because they were building a Confederate naval museum there. And the only problem is they built a cofferdam around it, pumped the water out, and then they were able to put some pontoons under the gunboat and then lift it up. And then the gunboat was still too big. They could only move it during flood stages. So whenever a flood came, they would tend to move it down. So I happened to be a duty officer one weekend, and I got a phone call that the water was high, we could move the gunboat. So I got a crew of guys, enlisted men, we went down, and we took the gunboat down to Columbus, Georgia. And as a thank you, they gave me the actual boat there. Here's the Rinker Family Bible. It was originally printed, I believe, in 1812, and my family acquired it in 1823, I think for $3.50. By my it's either my great-great or I think it's my great-great-grandfather. He was born in 1789 and died in 1850. And the Bible has passed down from generation to generation. I found it quite by accident. I had another relative who was moving into a life care facility, and I had to clean her house out. And I went down into her dank, dark basement, and she had boxes and drums all over the place. So I started going through them, and lo and behold, I found the Rinker Bible downstairs. But that's a cherished heirloom. If a hurricane came by and I thought my place was going to be destroyed, this is the one thing I would take with me.